Hey everyone, and welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Alyssa Ashe. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Appreciate each and every single one of you for being here. So we are going to dive right in to continued Hurricane Florence coverage as it is charging toward the Carolinas from the Atlantic Ocean. Now, over 1 million people have already evacuated, so I have some different models I'll be showing you guys, some live radar. So we're going to take it over, and I'll also be showing you pieces of statements from the governors of both North and South Carolina. So stay tuned for that. First, we are going to look at a live radar from Windy. Now, this is from windy.com, and you can see Hurricane Florence just gaining strength in the Atlantic Ocean. We're going to look, there's a little option on the bottom where you can actually see where it's projected to go throughout the week. So we're going to take a look at that. So right now you're seeing the current time about noon Wednesday Eastern time. And if I play it, you'll see how it's actually expected to move. And you can see we're going to back it up a little bit. So right here, getting closer to the coast. This is Thursday at 3 a.m. Now, if I play it, you can see how Thursday morning, and now this is Thursday at 6 p.m. You can see how it is just getting closer to the coast. Now, already made contact with the coast. This is Friday at 3 a.m. And you can see it's kind of moving southwest. A lot of models are expecting it to move southwest. Now this is going into Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. So some of you are saying to back it up. So we're going to take one more look at that before we move on to the next model. So this is where it is right now. And if I press play, you'll be able to see where it's expected to go. Now you can't see it, but at the bottom of the screen, there is a little timeline with time. So right here, I have it paused. We're looking at today at 11 p.m. Now, if I play it, you can see getting closer to the coast tonight. This is Thursday at 3 a.m. And going into Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon, you can see it is just making contact with the coast of North Carolina and the top of the coast of South Carolina. Now this is Thursday night and early Friday morning. You can see Hurricane Florence really barreling into the coast of North and South Carolina. And going into Friday night, Saturday morning, and Saturday afternoon, Sunday early morning, Sunday afternoon, and early Monday morning. So you can see there definitely will be a lot of leftover winds and just rain all throughout the east in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, probably Alabama, and Florida too. So you can definitely expect to see those. And real quick, I just wanted to give a shout out to some of our moderators that are here in the chat room. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate each and every single one of you. It looks like Sanity Personified is here today. Hey Sanity, hope that you are doing well. And Roger Vega is in the chat room as well. Hey Roger, hope it's going well for you. And Webster Cal is here. B. Neal is in the house. And let me see who else is here. Now, if you're not sure when I'm saying moderators, you might be watching on Facebook or Periscope. They keep our chat room clean and friendly and really provide information to our viewers. So we are very thankful for them. And I also like to shout out those monthly donors over on YouTube, those sponsors. They are members. They donate $4.99 a month, and then they get those fun emojis on YouTube. So it looks like Zoom Zoom is here in the house. Thank you so much, Zoom Zoom, for watching. Really appreciate you. And over on Facebook, just going to give a few shout outs. It looks like Cheryl Woods is here, Faye Shively, Shelly Maxwell, Janet Steve. And wow, lots watching on Facebook. That is fantastic. And one of my best friends from home, Spencer Willoughby, is watching. She is a future meteorologist, so maybe she can give me some tips after this. Carol Wolf is here, and Juanita Webb. Let's see, Shelly Maxwell and Debbie Pearl. Thank you guys so much for watching, tuning in. Really appreciate each and every single one of you. So I am also going to pull up a radar. This is actually an interactive map from the National Hurricane Center. So you can see we're going to kind of go through this map. We're going to go through the code and what everything means. So the orange circle right here with the black dot in it, that is the current center location, and this is from the National Hurricane Center. Now, the different circles you see around the center are the different wind speeds. So this brown orange color here, winds less than or up to, actually nope, winds greater than 74 miles per hour. And then we have the green here, greater than 58 miles per hour. And then we have the aqua green color here, winds greater than 39 miles per hour. So then, I don't know, it's kind of hard, might be hard for you to see, but there are also little dots here that say what the sustained winds are going to be like and kind of what those mean as well. So the M is for a major hurricane. You can see M's all throughout the Atlantic as Hurricane Florence travels through the Atlantic. And this is when we're going to see wind speeds greater than 110 miles per hour. Now the H stands for hurricane, and this is where we will see wind speeds between 74 and 110 miles per hour. And then kind of moving in, the S stands for tropical storm, and these are wind speeds between 39 miles per hour and 73 miles per hour. So you can see they're right here, kind of in the middle of South Carolina, close to Columbia. And then the D is for a tropical depression, wind speed less than 39 miles per hour. And it looks like that is going right through Greenville. So definitely scary because that is my hometown. So, hate to see that. But also, great comment. We got a comment from Micah Messer, one of our cameramen. Thank you so much for joining, Micah. He says, what people have to understand that even though this hurricane is worse, the states and cities are way more prepared, and people actually left the cities, unlike in NOLO. Thank you so much, Micah, for your comment. Really, really appreciate you. And we're going to kind of move on. I want to show you guys as many models as I can find, just so that we can get a really clear picture, and then we will go through some articles as well. Remember, if you guys have any information about this, something that you think might be helpful to us, send it to me over on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. That would be super appreciated. And I actually have a tweet that I want to share with you guys. The National Hurricane Center tweeted this out just an hour ago. So some key messages for Hurricane Florence. They said Advisory 53, a life-threatening storm surge is now highly likely along portions of the coastlines of South Carolina and North Carolina, and a storm surge warning is in effect for a portion of this area. All interests in these areas should complete preparations and follow any advice given by local officials. Life-threatening, catastrophic flash flooding and significant river flooding is likely over portions of the Carolinas late this week into early next week, as Florence is expected to slow down as it approaches the coast and moves inland. So it also says damaging hurricane force winds are likely along portions of the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina, and a hurricane warning is in effect. Strong winds could also spread inland into portions of the Carolinas. And large swells affecting Bermuda and portions of the U.S. East Coast will continue this week, resulting in life-threatening surf and rip currents. So also looks like they have another new tweet. So some of you were asking about that other storm that we saw on windy.com out in the Atlantic Ocean, and that is Tropical Storm Isaac. And I'm going to share some information on Isaac with you. But first, wanted to shout out, we just received a $5 donation from B. Neal. Thank you so much, B. Neal, for that. Really appreciate you. And he says, prayers for all who may be impacted by Florence. Stay safe. And he gave a $5 donation. Thank you so much, B. Neal. So generous of you. And that'll definitely help us get to our next rally, our next President Trump rally next week that we're hoping to be able to go to. Now, there's nothing official yet. That's just what we've heard. But stay tuned for that. So this is... Oh, that's a great comment. Sanity Personified says, Lisa says, don't forget your pets. Great comment there. Definitely bring those pets with you as you evacuate. So this is from the National Hurricane Center. This is looking at Tropical Storm Isaac. Like I said, some of you were asking about it. We kind of saw it out behind Hurricane Florence in the Atlantic Ocean. So we're going to go through this real quick. You can see a couple models right here. And it is definitely more south than Hurricane Florence. So Isaac is expected to remain a tropical storm intensity when it moves across the Lesser Antilles on Thursday, and tropical storm warnings are in effect for Martinique, Dominica, and Guadeloupe. Tropical storm watches are in effect for Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, and Saba, and St. Eustatius. Interest on those islands should follow any advice given by local officials. So life-threatening flash flooding is possible with Isaac. The storm is expected to produce total rainfall accumulations of 2 to 4 inches, with isolated amounts up 8 inches across Martinique, Dominica, and Guadeloupe. Rainfall amounts of 1 to 2 inches with isolated amounts of 4 inches are expected across Puerto Rico and the southern United States Virgin Islands. So we will definitely be looking out for that as well. Right now, though, we are focusing on Hurricane Florence, so want to show you guys some more interactive maps. This is an interactive map from kdvr.com. So you can kind of see its path and all the different areas it's expected to go to and affect, just with the different colors being different amounts of rainfall. And kind of moving on, this is a mesoscale view, and this is from the National Hurricane Center as well, and you can just see the eye of the storm, kind of how it's moving in the Atlantic Ocean, and you can see it behind me as well. That is my background today. So also wanted to take a look. This is from the National Hurricane Center, another model where we can actually see times of where it is projected to go. And this suggests that it'll really be impacting the coast of North Carolina and South Carolina as well. So this red suggests that it is the coast of North Carolina and up to the top, the south coast of Virginia. So looking at it, the red suggesting it's a hurricane warning, and then the pink down on the coast of South Carolina that it is a hurricane watch. And so you can see the cone right there. Now 11 a.m. Wednesday, here is Florence's current location. And moving up, same chart as we saw last time. So the M for major hurricane, and the H for hurricane, S for tropical storm, and D for depression. So it will obviously get closer tomorrow morning, looking at 8 a.m. on Thursday, and 12 hours later, 8 p.m. on Thursday. And then 8 a.m. on Friday, and 8 a.m. on Saturday. But we are expected to see some of those first just effects and possible flooding starting tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that. We will be up late with you. And Alex0393 says, any chance it'll go north? Right now, it's actually expected to go southwest. And Abigail Blue sharing a memory. She said, when Matthew hit my area in 2016, Red Cross was throwing donated clothes, blankets away in dumpsters. That is horrible. I hope that that does not happen this time. For sure. And Sanity Personified says, yes, Samaritan's Purse is a great organization to help. And great message from Kenneth Meekums. He says, to all the out-of-state crews coming to help restore power, thank you in advance. Now, I do want to find more information about those out-of-state crews. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for mentioning them. and going to put up a live radar for you guys. This is cool. This is on windy. You can actually, as you can see right here on this side, change the different things you can see. So this is looking at rain and thunder. And I'm pulling it up to the current time. This is looking at lightning. Okay, and now we can see Hurricane Florence again and where it is right now. So talking about those workers that are going to be restoring power. Found some information about that for you guys. So the Knoxville Utility Board has actually released 6 crews to parts of the East Coast to assist in restoring power where it may be needed when Hurricane Florence makes landfall later this week. And this is from knoxnews.com. So the KUB spokeswoman, Stephanie Midget, said the crews will stay at dispatch centers in Pennsylvania and Virginia and then respond to power outages as they are needed. So the powerful Category 4 hurricane, packing wind speeds of 140 miles per hour, is expected to reach the Carolinas early overnight Thursday, with more than 1 million people ordered to evacuate coastal areas. And also, we just got a $1 donation from Hillary. Thank you so much for that, Hillary. Appreciate your support. So Florence is expected to dump 20 inches of rain on the Carolinas, a storm the National Weather Services warns will likely be the storm of a lifetime for portions of the Carolina coast. So Alex0393, I see you asking a lot about if this hurricane really is going to curve south. Why do I think that? And I will show you, it's what a lot of different models are saying. So I'm going to pull that up. Actually, I have a picture on Twitter. So this is from Brad Nitz. He is a meteorologist at WSB TV in Atlanta. And you can kind of see how it is curving south. And some information from the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So the latest projections show Hurricane Florence shifting slightly to the south, putting parts of Georgia at risk for heavy rain and possible flooding, according to Channel 2 Action News. So it's still too early to really know where Florence, now a Category 4 storm, will make landfall. The National Hurricane Center has issued hurricane and storm surge watches for parts of South Carolina and North Carolina, where the center of the storm is expected to hit as early as Thursday and as late as Saturday. So Georgia Governor Nathan Deal told Channel 2 his office is expected to sign an executive order declaring a state of emergency ahead of Florence. And he said state agencies are positioning emergency equipment in areas expected to get hit the hardest. And President Trump was already sounding the alarm Wednesday on Twitter. And he said Hurricane Florence may now be dipping south and hitting a portion of the great state of Georgia. Be ready, be prepared. So President Trump saying it might dip south as well. So wherever it goes, Florence will be a big rainmaker, according to Channel 2 meteorologist Karen Mitten. And early data indicates the storm could dump as much as 15 to 25 inches, with 35 inches possible accumulation in some spots. And Mitten said the models are starting to differ a little bit and trying to stall it along the North South Carolina coast and possibly curve it back across South Carolina toward Georgia. But there's another scenario where it brings down through the Savannah River Valley and then back up toward the north. So officials say Florence could be the most catastrophic storm to hit the Carolinas in decades. Mandatory evacuation orders took effect Tuesday in parts of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, prompting the Atlanta Motor Speedway to open its camping facilities to evacuees. And those states, as well as Maryland, have declared states of emergency. So also a tropical storm watch has been issued for many coastal areas in Virginia, and hurricane warnings are in effect for many South and North Carolina rivers. And additional watches could go into effect as the storm's path becomes clear. So also wondering when and where Florence will make landfall. So the latest models have Florence stalling at the North Carolina, South Carolina coast early Thursday before making landfall Saturday morning and traveling inland over South Carolina, according to Channel 2. And Channel 2 meteorologist Brian Monahan said steering currents collapsed Thursday, leaving a large and dangerous hurricane lashing the coast for potentially days. Now, by the time it reaches Georgia, wind would be much lighter, but rain chances are expected to increase. So at 11 a.m. today, Eastern Time, Florence was moving northwest at 15 miles per hour. And it's about 425 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, and 520 miles east-southeast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, both possible spots for landfall. So the Hurricane Center said in its latest advisory, Florence is expected to slow down considerably by late Thursday into Friday and move slowly through early Saturday. On the forecast track, the center of Florence will move over the southwestern Atlantic Ocean between Bermuda and the Bahamas today and approach the coast of North Carolina or South Carolina in the hurricane warning area on Thursday or Friday. So conditions along the South Carolina, North Carolina coast will rapidly deteriorate starting late Wednesday, according to Monahan. So hurricane and storm surge watches are in effect from Edisto Beach north to the North Carolina-Virginia border, including the Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds. So that means that there is a possibility of hurricane conditions and life-threatening surges from rising water moving inland from the coastline over the next 48 hours, occurring according to the Hurricane Center. And Monahan said this is going to send enormous waves, beach erosion, rip currents all along the East Coast. This will come in along the Carolinas, but the impacts are going to be wide-reaching all along the East Coast. So Florence has been classified as a Category 4 storm since Monday afternoon. Sustained winds have reached 140 miles per hour, and gusts have registered as high as 165 miles per hour, according to the Hurricane Center. So on Wednesday, wind speeds were holding at 130 miles per hour. So as Florence travels over deep, warm water, it could intensify before losing some steam and actually making landfall as a Category 3 storm. And the hurricane said on Wednesday, strengthening is forecast through tonight, while some weakening is expected on Thursday. Florence is forecast to be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it nears the U.S. coast. And 30 to 40 foot waves to the coast and flooding are concerns, Monahan said. And I think I have a stream of those waves that I can show with you guys. This is from Surfline. Not exactly sure where, but you can definitely see the waves coming in. So floodwaters could reach heights of 2 to 8 feet above ground in some places, and the deepest water is expected along the immediate coast in the path of onshore winds, where the surge will actually be accompanied by large and destructive waves, according to the Hurricane Center. So even beyond the coast, flooding could be significant if Florence stalls and dumps huge amounts of rain over the Appalachian Mountains and as far away as West Virginia, Monahan said. So flash floods, mudslides, and other dangerous conditions are possible. Now, it was also said that Florence could do what Hurricane Harvey did last year over Texas, dumping days of rain, although he said some of the flooding won't be that scale. And this is from the meteorologist at WSB, Brian Monahan. So wondering if this will be the last storm of this hurricane season. Definitely not. In fact, there's actually what's being called a conga line of storms coming off the west coast of Africa that all have the potential to develop into tropical storms or hurricanes, Channel 2 Chief Meteorologist Glenn Burns said. So Channel 2 is tracking cyclones Isaac and Helen, and another wave headed off the west coast of Africa. Helen will not be a factor for the U.S., according to Channel 2. So hurricane season reached its official peak on Monday. So stay tuned for more updates. And going to switch back to show you guys that live radar again. And this is from windy.com. And I am taking a second to check my Twitter messages and to see what updates and information you guys have for me. Thank you so much for your feedback. Really appreciate it. So just got another interactive map from a viewer, Michelle Kuhn, the fam. Thank you so much for sharing. Now I'm going to pull this over so that you guys can see it. This is actually from Ventusky. And it is an interactive map right now. She had the waves clicked for me. And you can actually see 40 to 50 foot waves at the eye wall of the storm. So looking at the eye of the storm, they're about 30 to 33 feet high. And 20 feet kind of surrounding it, moving out a little bit at 10 feet. And you can see how it is really getting close on this model to the North and South Carolina coast. Now, if we look at temperature, it shows the different degrees kind of in the eye of the storm, looking at the 80s, low 80s. And then you can see precipitation as well. This is Ventusky, for those asking, VENTUSKY.com. And you can switch over and see the clouds as well. Obviously, 100% chance in the eye of the storm. And a lot of you are asking what this website is, so I'm going to send it to you real quick here on the YouTube chat. Now looking at the wind speed, this is 10 meters above ground.
When it comes to birth control,
You can see some of the higher speeds.
The birth control that goes in my arm.
Looks like
Because for
the
the next 3
highest
years,
was
I know what I want.
74
Arm
miles
her
per
up,
hour,
because it's
kind
my
of just
time.
right
Because
outside
right now, it's all
of the
about us.
eye, and then moving out a little
Nexplanon is a
bit,
small, flexible implant
about
placed under the
38
skin of your
miles
inner
per
upper
hour.
arm in your doctor's office.
It takes a few minutes to insert and is over 99% effective at preventing pregnancy. Nexplanon is reversible and can be removed at any time by your doctor. Don't use Nexplanon if you are pregnant or think you may be pregnant, have or have had blood clots, have liver disease or a liver tumor, have unexplained vaginal bleeding, or you have or have had certain cancers.
You can actually see
placed, you and your
higher numbers right here near the eye of the storm, 113 miles per hour, 115 miles per hour.
Methods such as condoms. Removal of the implant may be very difficult or impossible if the implant is not where it should be.
Pressure
While uncommon,
levels,
ectopic pregnancy can occur while using Nexplanon. It can be life-threatening and may result in loss of pregnancy or fertility.
Definitely a really cool interactive map. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing it with us. Definitely going to
Nexplanon may increase your chance of serious blood clots, especially if you smoke or have other risk factors. Blood clots can cause heart attacks,
you can also see
Nexplanon does not protect against HIV or other STDs.
Obviously, 100% chance in the eye of the storm.
That goes in my arm.
For up to 3 years of continuous pregnancy prevention, ask your doctor about Nexplanon today.
And back to those waves. Yeah, I need to find that. I just saw the comments. Where is it? Sorry about that ad there that played by itself, trying to find it. But anyways, so looking at those wave heights, different wave heights, you can see over at the eye wall just outside the eye of the storm, looking at the high 30s right here, you can even see where it's a little darker because this is color coded. 46 feet high. And this map is really cool. It also has different options. You can also see snow cover, which obviously no inches of snow, and the freezing level. And bear with me, I am pulling up another Earth cam right now, sent by a viewer, Michelle, as well. Thank you so much for sharing it, Michelle. This is a live look at Myrtle Beach. And you can hear the wind, but it does not look too bad right now. I was actually there last weekend, so got out just in time. And I also want to take a second to show you guys some statements from the governors of North and South Carolina. So this is Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina. This is from WFMY Channel 2 News. So we're going to take a look, just about a minute of his statement. And this was yesterday when he issued a mandatory state evacuation order for vulnerable coastal areas. And the state order is in addition to local evacuation orders already in place in most coastal communities. It is the first of such an evacuation order in the state's history.
I have an urgent message for everyone in North Carolina. Hurricane Florence will affect each and every one of you. This storm is a monster. It's big and it's vicious. It is an extremely dangerous, life-threatening, historic hurricane. That's why I'm ordering a mandatory state evacuation for our barrier islands, and I'm directing the people of North Carolina to obey local evacuation orders that have already been issued and will be issued along our coast. The waves and the wind this storm may bring is nothing like you've ever seen. Even if you've ridden out storms before, this one is different. Don't bet your life on riding out a monster. If you wait until conditions get bad, it may be too late to get out safely, and you also put first responders at risk. Driving on flooded roads can also be deadly. The time to hope Hurricane Florence away is gone. Our coast is under a hurricane watch, and likely it will take the first strike from Florence. Strong, damaging winds and torrential rain will stretch far inland. Rain in some places will be measured in feet, not inches. Wherever you are in North Carolina, get ready for Florence now. Last night, the President granted my request for a federal disaster declaration so that federal funding and resources can come quickly for North Carolina. We want you to make sure that you're ready for extended rain and wind, and we cannot expect this storm to blow over in a matter of hours. In fact, this forecast shows Florence stalling over North Carolina, bringing days and days of rain to some areas. Utilities say expect to lose power for several days and maybe longer. Know that the storm surge will inundate low-lying areas. Rivers will flood their banks. Preparation is our best defense. And if you haven't already, the time to prepare is now. We're fortunate to have a strong team in place for preparing for this storm. We have Public Safety Secretary Eric Hooks to my right. To my immediate right, we have Emergency Management Director Mike Sprayberry. To my immediate left in the back is Secretary Jim Trogdon, our Secretary of Transportation. We also have Colonel Glenn McNeil, the commander of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. And we have Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, Major General Greg Lusk, who's here with us. And Monica McGee is providing our interpreting today. North Carolina's outstanding emergency responders are working 24 hours a day to be ready. I'm going to recognize Mike Sprayberry, the Emergency Management Director, to give you some more specific details about what we're doing. Mike?
Thank you, Governor. I'll be short. First of all, I just want to say that everyone needs to heed the evacuation orders that have been issued by their local jurisdictions and by the governor. I would say do it today, especially those with medical support needs. Do it today. I would also tell you that the State Emergency Operations Center remains activated at a 24-hour basis. We're here with all of our state emergency response team partners, and that our federal agency, the FEMA agency, is here in full support. They've stood up an incident support base at Fort Bragg with commodities. Urban search and rescue teams are incoming along with swiftwater rescue teams. So we're getting more resources all the time to be prepared beginning tomorrow when we'll have to engage in the response. Finally, I'd just like to say that this storm is going to be unprecedented. It will have an unprecedented effect for the citizens and visitors in North Carolina. Take it seriously. Heed the evacuation orders. Thank you very much.
Now I want to recognize the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, Jim Trogdon, to give us a little briefing about what's happening with the department. Secretary Trogdon.
Yes, thank you, Governor. The North Carolina Department of Transportation is readying our crews across the state. We have approximately 2,100 people that will be responding to this storm. Multitudes of equipment, about 1,200 trucks, 1,000 chainsaws, excavators, signs, great sign inventory to make sure we can establish detours where we need to. And we're also doing things like providing support to emergency management for unmanned aerial systems or drones. We have the only unmanned aerial system or drone traffic management capability in the state, so we'll be supporting the Division of Emergency Management with that kind of response. Our ferry crews have been supporting evacuation on all of the barrier islands. They'll continue that through tomorrow morning, and then we'll be mooring all of those vessels for the storm to pass. We're also establishing a hub of support in eastern North Carolina at the Global Trans Park. That will be supporting both state response and federal response with supplies, boat rescue, medical supplies, all of the things that we need, as well as an incident command. Will be supporting that effort there. And that concludes my update. Thank you.
We're also grateful to have the members of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. We are counting on them. We've activated National Guard troops, and both Commander McNeil and General Lusk are here to answer questions about that. We want to tell people and remind people to gather your supplies that you need and follow evacuation orders.
So I am also going to show you part of the statement from South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. But first, wanted to shout out B. Neal, just donated $5 to RSBN. Thank you so much, B. Neal. Really appreciate that. Who says, God bless our first responders who run to danger rather than away. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, B. Neal, for a very inspiring message. And this is from News 19 WLTX, and going to show you guys just a piece of Henry McMaster telling South Carolina to be prepared.
So what that means is we need to be prepared. As I mentioned yesterday, the official side of our preparations is being done in a magnificent fashion. We've had practice doing this, as you know, in recent years, and Team South Carolina is on the job. People are being activated. I issued the executive order yesterday that allowed a lot of things to happen and to happen more quickly, and we're moving assets and people to the coast, getting people in place to respond to whatever happens. But I say this, although the official side of this is being done with great precision, great skill, and great speed, it's the unofficial side, that is the citizens, that have a part that is important to play, and that is make your plans now. If you have pretend, assume, presume that a major hurricane is going to hit right smack dab in the middle of South Carolina and may go way inshore. And that means winds and water. So you have to get your medicines ready to go. If you have prescriptions you need filled, better get them filled. If you have relatives who need to be alerted to where you might go or where you can go, tell them, take care of your pets. Be sure to lock things up because you may not be coming home for several days. So that means you may need to take food, you may need to take flashlights, depending on where you're going to go. But there's a lot of information that's available at scemd.org, scemd.org. There's ample information that provides all that we're discussing. And also, I call your attention again to the South Carolina Hurricane Guide. This is about as good as it gets. It's online at scemd.org, and in some places you can pick up a hard copy. But if you can't find those, go online. It's got everything you need to know. It's very easy to read, easy to understand, and if we'll all just follow these rules and prepare for this, what is likely going to be a strong hit on South Carolina. We don't know how much. We can't predict for sure, but we know we're going to have a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And remember, it doesn't take much to knock down a telephone pole. A 40-mile-an-hour wind can knock down a telephone pole, and there goes your power until it can get fixed. So be prepared, be ready. And I need to tell you, I submitted today to President Trump a request for a federal emergency declaration in anticipation of the impact on South Carolina. What that means is we're asking for authorization in advance to make application to get reimbursed for expenses for people, machinery, and assets we may need to clean up and fix whatever damage results from this, what is now a hurricane. With that, I'd like to call on the weatherman, John Quirello of the National Weather Service. John.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. As the Governor mentioned, Florence is now a Category 1 hurricane. It's still moving slowly to the west, about 6 miles per hour. Florence will begin to rapidly strengthen, becoming a major hurricane by Monday evening. A turn to the northwest and an increase in forward speed will then occur through the middle of the week. Florence is expected to approach the southeast coast as a major hurricane on Thursday. On this current track, the tropical storm force winds could arrive across parts of the South Carolina coast by Thursday morning. And as the Governor mentioned, given the slower approach, that's just a little bit later than what we were expecting yesterday. While the official forecast shows Florence making landfall across southeast North Carolina, it's still important to remember that the cone of uncertainty still covers the entire South Carolina coast, as the Governor also mentioned, meaning that landfall.
So this was from a couple days ago, September 9th. As you heard, he was saying it's a Category 1 storm, and as you know, it is now a Category 4. So I have some more information for you guys from a few different sources, but before we get into that, I wanted to tell everyone watching a little bit about RSBN. I know we have some more viewers right now just because it is hurricane coverage. It is a big deal. So welcome. We're really glad to have you, and wanted to just give you just a quick rundown of kind of what RSBN is, who we are, and how we function. So we're actually a conservative news station, but we try to be non-biased to give you guys both sides of the story so that you can make informed decisions with the facts. And we actually get to travel to President Trump rallies all around the country, which is such a blast and such an honor. President Trump is really just going to all different states just to really make sure that the GOP can keep the House and the Senate, and he's endorsing candidates all around the country. And so it's really cool that we are actually able to go and, you know, get to know them, get to know him more, but mostly to get to know his supporters. We actually go in the middle of those crowds and we interview people. We ask them why they're there, what it means to them, and just their heart behind it, why they like President Trump, what issues matter to them, different things like that. And it's really cool to hear their stories. So as you can imagine, going to these rallies are very expensive. It's a minimum of $5,000 each time. And the campaign has actually announced that there will be still 30 rallies before midterms in November. So we always send a crew of 3 to 5, and our fees include just lodging and travel, whether we're taking a rental car or flying if we have to. It's still all very expensive. And then of course it's a couple $100s just to have that live view unit up and running, which is the unit we're actually able to stream from and bring you guys a live feed of the entire rally. And of course show you the crowds, which is really fun. It's a really cool thing we're able to do that the mainstream media does not capitalize on. So it's an honor that we're able to really show you the entire crowd. So some different ways you can actually donate to help us get there, because we are donor supported. One way is right here over on YouTube. You just click the $sign, that is the super chat at the bottom, and it's really fun. Your message will actually come up in a bright color with your name, and I'll share it with everyone as long as it's appropriate. And a couple different ways on our website as well. You can do it through PayPal, and I will take a second just to show you those options. So you go to rsbnetwork.com. And then it's kind of behind me right here, but if you can see it, the fourth tab over, you click donate. And then you can see the different options right here. If you are donating through PayPal, you can click that and the screen will come up. Also, we just received on YouTube a $2 donation from Ricky Lee. Thank you so much, Ricky, for that. Really appreciate you and your support. So if you're donating through PayPal, you enter the amount right here. And if you are using a debit or credit card, you enter that information there, or you can, of course, save it for a later time. Now, PayPal's great because we actually get to keep 90% of that, whereas on YouTube, we just keep 70% of that. So also, if you feel more invested in RSBN, you really like what you're seeing, and you want to make sure that we're still able to go to these rallies, you can actually give a monthly donation on Patreon. You can actually become a patron. So you just click this link right here, and you can become a patron. Now, there are different levels going all the way from the entry level, which is $1 or more per month, going all the way to all access, which is when you're donating $500 or more a month. Now, if you can't donate, we get that. Please just share the stream on your social media accounts so that we're able to gain more exposure. Now, that last way you can donate, if you are not comfortable donating online, we completely understand and respect that. You can actually donate by sending a check to us. You just write it out to RSBN, and we are at 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama 36830. So it's such an honor when I get the chance to go through those letters and suggestions actually with Joe. He's actually going through them right now, and we received a donation all the way from Israel. So thank you so much to that donor. Really appreciate you. And awesome, we just received a $4.99 donation from Robbie Bob Nashville Now. Thank you for that. He said, "Where's Joe? He used to give weather all the time on air and sounded just like Jim Cantori. Very knowledgeable." Thank you, Robbie. He might be doing some updates over the next couple days to give me a break, so stay tuned for that. And I got a couple messages on Twitter real quick, but while I check those, I am going to show you guys a live feed again of Hurricane Florence. So Stager Weed says, "Is the wind still blowing?" Yes, definitely. And I will show you guys on this model how we can see it. You can see those different wind speeds. So we're going to zoom in a little bit, kind of just to get a better look. So at the eye of the storm, looks like a wind speed of 13 knots. And if we zoom out, it actually increases. Right here, 57 knots. And 65 knots. 52. And 45. And I'm going to let you guys continue to take a look at this while I actually share some articles with you from a couple viewers. Thank you so much. Got one from Rick Bulow and Alex D. Pasquale. Thank you very much for sharing. Gonna start with Alex's article. This is actually from Axios, and it was published just 2 days ago. It's a really cool look, really unique. It's called "Go Deeper. Hurricane Florence is a storm threat unlike any other." So it states Hurricane Florence is a nightmare storm for the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic. The reasons stem from the hurricane's power, size, forward speed, and the long-standing vulnerability of the area it is forecast to hit. So the big picture, There are no historical analogs to compare Florence to. Its forecast track is unprecedented, and its array and magnitude of threats are as well. So if Hurricane Florence makes landfall in North Carolina, north of the border area with South Carolina, which is actually where Hurricane Hazel hit back in 1954, or Virginia as a Category 4 storm, it would be the strongest storm to do so that far north. So what to watch? Some wind speeds. The maximum winds in a hurricane tend to garner the most headlines, and for good reason. They cause significant, occasionally catastrophic damage. Now, in Florence's case, the hurricane's slow forward motion as it comes ashore raises the possibility that some areas could see an extended duration of hurricane force winds, which would maximize property damage and infrastructure problems, particularly to the electric grid. Now, also looking out for the surge. So when a larger storm pushes more water toward the shore than a smaller size storm of similar intensity, Florence's angle of approach to the coastline could act to maximize the storm potential, since it may approach at nearly a 90-degree angle, much like Sandy did in New Jersey in 2012. So the surge from Florence could hit record levels of 15 to 20 feet or higher. And the Carolinas are uniquely vulnerable to storm surge flooding because the continental shelf extends far offshore by about 50 miles, which actually creates a large swallow area that enables a storm to build up water to great heights. Now, other hurricane-prone areas like southern Florida have a steeper slope offshore and typically see lower surge amounts. So the storm surge will ride atop sea levels, boosted by long-term sea level rise, which has already increased the frequency of coastal flooding, even on sunny days in the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic. So we'll also be seeing some inland flooding. So an anonymously strong area of high pressure stretching out to the storm's north over the western Atlantic is what is forcing the storm to turn west into the U.S. Now, the same high pressure area is forecast to cause the hurricane to cross the coast and hit the brakes to devastating effect. And Florence will be carrying a huge amount of water vapor lapped up from unusually mild Atlantic Ocean waters. And as we saw with Hurricane Harvey back in 2017, stalled hurricanes and tropical storms can turn entire cities into inland oceans. And climate change has raised the odds of such torrential rainstorms as well. So computer models are vacillating on which areas will get the most rain, but maximum rainfalls amounts above 30 inches are possible, and this swath of flooding could stretch toward or over the Washington, D.C. area as well. So North Carolina has seen major inland floods from hurricanes before, most recently during Hurricane Matthew in 2016. And this time, those floods could occur across states that have already had copious amounts of rain this summer and can't absorb much more before flooding occurs, including Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and West Virginia. So thank you very much, Alex, for sharing that with us. So also just received another article from Rick Bulow. Thank you so much for that. This is from the News Press, part of the USA Today network. And it's about a Lee County emergency team and Red Cross volunteers on the way to North Carolina to help in the wake of Hurricane Florence. And this one has some pictures, so I'm going to pull it over so that you are able to see those as we go through it. So teams of volunteers from Lee County are heading to the Wilmington, North Carolina area to help with the response to Hurricane Florence, which is currently bearing down on the U.S. Atlantic coast. So a team from Lee County EMS left Tuesday, and a team of Red Cross volunteers will leave Wednesday, joining the more than 700 disaster workers en route to the region to help. So the local strike team left from the Lee County Emergency Operations Center on Ortiz Avenue about 9 a.m. Tuesday, citing the assistance the area received last year in the wake of Hurricane Irma. And Ben Abes, who is actually the director of Lee County Public Safety and chief of emergency medical services, said a year ago we received the assistance of 5 ambulance strike teams from across the country after Hurricane Irma. We're fortunate to be able to share our team with our friends in North Carolina as they prepare for the impacts of Hurricane Florence. So 2 ambulances and a supervisor unit from Lee County EMS departed for Sarasota, where they met with 3 more ambulances, according to Betsy Clayton, a Lee County spokeswoman. Now, together, the teams will actually head to Wilmington to assist with the response to Hurricane Florence. And members of the Lee County team included Lieutenants Chris Wickberg and Scott Phillips, paramedics Rick Waters, Nicole Hansen, and Lori Jovanov, and EMT Linda Johnson. So you can see this picture right here. Now these are those 2 ambulances and a supervisor unit from Lee County EMS departing for Sarasota, where they're actually meeting up with 3 more ambulances and then heading to North Carolina to assist in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence. So you can see the picture here. These are those 10 volunteers. They're from the Southern Gulf chapter of the Red Cross, and they will depart on Wednesday to North Carolina and Virginia, where they'll stay for about 2 weeks, and they'll be supporting different areas of service ranging from mass care, logistics, public affairs, and government operations. And Paul Benassia, who is actually a 66-year-old Cape Coral resident, will be one of them. He'll be stationed in mass care in Richmond, Virginia, helping to run shelters and feed those staying in them. So Benassia was inspired to join the Red Cross efforts after he stayed in a shelter for 2 nights last year during Hurricane Irma. He was advised to evacuate his home along a canal in Cape Coral, where he'd been living for 3 years. And not only did he meet people from all walks of life in the shelter, but he also met volunteers from all over the country. And he said, I thought it was fantastic that people from all over the country help out, and I thought I'd like to do that. Whether it's a tornado in the Midwest or wildfires or whatever, it's a good way to spend some time of my retirement giving back. So the Red Cross is also sending vehicles, equipment, and relief supplies, and will continue to do so until it's no longer safe to travel, according to Executive Director Jill Palmer. So if you would like to help those Red Cross efforts, you can do so by visiting redcross.org, calling 1-800-RED-CROSS, or texting the word Florence in all caps to 90999 to make a $10 donation. And those who send checks in the mail can ensure that their donations go to a specific disaster by writing the disaster name of the memo line on the check. And they can also complete and mail the donation form on redcross.org with that check. So another great article from Rick Bulow. Thank you very much for sharing that. And going to bring that radar back up for you guys. So some more information. This is actually from al.com or Advance Local. And it was updated just a couple hours ago. And it says Hurricane Florence track update, path has shifted southward on Wednesday. So Hurricane Florence remained a powerful Category 4 hurricane on Wednesday morning that could bring a 1-2 punch of wind and water to the Carolinas. The National Hurricane Center continued to stress the magnitude of the risks from Florence, damaging winds, life-threatening storm surge, and catastrophic inland flooding. So Florence's forecast track has also shifted a bit to the south on Wednesday, and forecasters noted that shifts further to the south could be possible. However, the Hurricane Center urged hurricane watchers not to focus just on the point of landfall. Forecasters said Wednesday morning, it's important for users to realize that significant impacts extend well away from the center of Florence, and serious hazards such as dangerous storm surge and flooding rains will cover a large area regardless of exactly where the center moves. Those impacts won't lessen even if Florence's wind speed decreases some, which it is forecast to do as the storm nears the coast. So Florence is also expected to slow down and crawl just off the coast before making landfall, which could exacerbate impacts from surge, wind, and rain. So as of 10 a.m. Central Time Wednesday, Hurricane Florence was located about 485 miles south of Wilmington, North Carolina, and was moving northwest at 15 miles per hour. So Florence remained a powerful Category 4 hurricane with 130 miles per hour winds, according to the National Hurricane Center. And a flight confirmed the intensity of that on Wednesday morning. So forecasters said Florence has an opportunity to get stronger today before weakening begins on Thursday as it nears the East Coast. And it is forecast to have winds of about 120 miles per hour as it nears the coast late Thursday or early Friday. So the big question continues to be, where will Florence make landfall? So Florence is forecast to track the west, northwest, and northwest through Thursday. Then it could slow down by late Thursday and early Friday as it nears the coast. So the latest forecast track from the Hurricane Center shows the center of the storm just off the coast as a major hurricane Friday morning. And it could actually lash the coast for a full day while weakening before making landfall farther to the south Saturday morning. So Abigail Blue asking where it is at the present time. You can see it right here in the Atlantic Ocean. And it is definitely edging towards the Carolinas. So the Hurricane Center noted that models have shifted southward, and so has the official track earlier Wednesday. Now the Hurricane Center said in its latest update that the forecasters' thinking has not changed. So they said later In the period, the dynamical model spread increases, but most of the guidance has continued its southward shift and now take Florence southwestward near the coast of South Carolina by day 4. And forecasters said many of the more reliable models have shifted even further south of the official track, and an additional southward adjustment may be warranted in future advisories. So some different watches and warnings that were in effect as of 10 a.m. Central Time. So a storm surge warning is in effect from the South Santee River in South Carolina to Duck, North Carolina, as well as the Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds and the Neuse and Pamlico Rivers. So a storm surge watch is in effect from Edisto Beach, South Carolina, to the South Santee River, South Carolina, as well as from north of Duck, North Carolina, to the North Carolina-Virginia border. And a hurricane warning is in effect from the South Santee River, South Carolina, to Duck, North Carolina, and the Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds. And a hurricane watch is in effect from Edisto, South Carolina, to the South Santee River, South Carolina. Also, a tropical storm warning is in effect from north of Duck, North Carolina, to the North Carolina-Virginia border. And a tropical storm watch is in effect from north of the North Carolina-Virginia border to Cape Charles Light in Virginia, as well as the Chesapeake Bay south of New Point Comfort. So the Hurricane Center was particularly concerned about storm surge and inland flooding from Florence. Storm surge could reach 9 to 13 feet in the surge warning area from Cape Lookout to Cape Fear in North Carolina, and as high as 9 feet for the Myrtle Beach area. So heavy and excessive rainfall is also likely, especially if the storm stalls near the coast. And coastal North Carolina could get 20 to 30 inches of rain, with isolated areas getting up to 40 inches of rain from Hurricane Florence. And the Hurricane Center said this rainfall would produce catastrophic flash flooding and significant river flooding. So Florence is one of the 3 named storms in the Atlantic on Wednesday. There's also Hurricane Helen, which is weakening as it moves northward, far from land in the central Atlantic. And Tropical Storm Isaac is also weakening as it tracks closer to the Caribbean. It's forecast to move through the islands on Thursday while continuing to weaken. So also an update from NPR talking about how North Carolina governor said disaster is at the doorstop as Hurricane Florence zeroes in. So Hurricane Florence is blasting toward the Carolinas, carrying sustained winds of up to 130 miles per hour and the threat of life-threatening storm surge and rainfall, the National Hurricane Center says. So a hurricane warning, meaning hurricane conditions are expected within 36 hours, is in effect for a long stretch of the coast, from the Santee River in South Carolina to Duck, North Carolina, which is part of the Outer Banks. So hurricane conditions will likely hit the area around North Carolina's southern coast Friday, but the tropical storm conditions will arrive on Thursday, according to the Hurricane Center. In North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper said disaster is at the doorstep and is coming in. If you're on the coast, there's still time to get out safely. And he said the time to prepare for the storm is almost over. So shortly before 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Florence was 485 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, before moving northwest at 15 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center. So the threat has sparked a rush of evacuation efforts in South Carolina and North Carolina, with more than 1 million people urged to get out of Florence's way. And governors of those states have already declared states of emergency, as have the governors of Virginia and Maryland. And Georgia Governor Nathan Deal followed suit on Wednesday. So forecasters have adjusted Hurricane Florence's projected path, saying that after it makes landfall, it's likely to take a more southerly route than expected. And rather than pushing up toward western Virginia, the storm center is now predicted to move across the middle of South Carolina. So massive waves of up to 83 feet were measured inside the storm on Wednesday, according to the National Hurricane Center's Tropical Analysis and Forecast Branch. And this agency said these enormous waves are produced by being trapped along with very strong winds moving in the same direction as the storm's motion. So for a swath of the North Carolina shore from Cape Fear to Cape Lookout, the storm surge could range from 9 to 13 feet, the National Hurricane Center said. And in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and nearby areas, the surge could hit 6 to 9 feet. So news that the storm could plow through South Carolina came shortly after Governor Henry McMaster lifted his mandatory evacuation order for Beaufort County and many other areas south of Charleston. The only exception was Edisto Beach. That and other areas to the north remain under evacuation orders. So emergency preparations in South Carolina now include more than 2,100 of the state's National Guard soldiers. In North Carolina, Cooper says 2,800 soldiers will be on active duty, joined by even more on standby. And the Charleston International Airport will close Wednesday night at 11:59 p.m. until further notice. And this is reported by George Kearns of South Carolina Public Radio. And he added businesses in Myrtle Beach are to have operations ceased and secured by 5 this afternoon. So the National Weather Service office in Newport and Morehead City also said historical rainfall amounts from Florence are possible with unprecedented flooding. And Florence is currently heading for ocean water that has surface temperatures of about 85 degrees, meaning it will likely strengthen on its way to the east coast. So even with some weakening that's predicted just before it makes landfall, the storm is expected to remain a dangerous major hurricane as it approaches the coastline, according to the Hurricane Center. So satellite images actually show the storm has maintained a distinct eye and is well organized. Its maximum sustained winds are expected to top 145 miles per hour before losing some steam near the coast. And current forecasts call for Florence to be at least a Category 3 storm when it arrives at the Carolinas. So the National Hurricane Center's senior hurricane specialist Stacy Stewart said on Wednesday, rather than a very narrow and intense band of winds, the winds are slightly weaker but they cover a much larger area. So Florence is kind of spreading out, becoming a much larger, more stable hurricane. And Florence is predicted to turn more toward the northwest by this afternoon and through Thursday, but then it's expected to head more west-northwest and stall a bit over the Carolinas. As the Hurricane Center says, Florence is expected to slow down considerably by late Thursday into Friday, and move slowly through early Saturday. So the slow movement combined with the massive amount of moisture that the storm actually holds will bring dangerous rains from 20 to 30 inches in coastal North Carolina, with 40 inches possible in isolated areas, the Weather Service says. So in South Carolina and inland parts of North Carolina, 5 to 10 inches of rain could fall, with 20 inches possible in some areas. And the Hurricane Center says this rainfall would produce catastrophic flash flooding and significant river flooding. So on Wednesday morning, Florence was extending hurricane force winds outward and up to 70 miles from its center, with the tropical storm force winds of up to 175 miles outward. So with that much size and strength, even a glancing blow from Florence could be devastating, something forecasters stressed as they noted the shift in Florence's predicted track. So the National Hurricane Center Director Ken Graham said, just because we have a landfall to your south, that doesn't mean you're out of the woods, because the winds are huge around this system. And to back that up, Graham cited a sobering statistic. He said 50% of the fatalities in these tropical systems is the storm surge, and that's not just along the coast, it goes well inland. And another 25% of deaths are actually related to rain, he said. So President Trump says the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and first responders are poised to help, but he also warned people to get out of the storm's path. And President Trump said Wednesday morning, bad things can happen when you're talking about a storm this size. It's called Mother Nature. You never know, but we know. And going to move on to Twitter. Really want to see what people are saying about Hurricane Florence. So let's check on that real quick. Now, if you have any more information, maybe an article that I may have missed, please send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. That would be very appreciated. So just 16 seconds ago, Industry on Blast said, yikes, thousands of residents who live in the projected Hurricane Florence areas are evacuating amidst reports of the storm. And this is a model that kind of backs it up a little bit from Nepal Venture. So it says Hurricane Florence, 807 flights grounded, airlines issuing waivers. And you can see kind of where it was and where it is now. It has moved so much. And someone else, Climatic Issues, posted this picture of traffic that says Hurricane Florence travel nightmare sees hundreds of flights canceled. And this is from CBS Chicago. Communities along the Carolina coast prepared for the onslaught of Hurricane Florence as forecasters warned that the monster storm could hesitate just offshore for days before pushing its way inland. And it looks like there are some pictures here we can look at. So this is Ocean Boulevard, and it's empty of tourists after mandatory evacuations. This is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And this is a picture from yesterday. And I remember this one from yesterday if you tuned in. This is Jazz Undy. He's the owner of Wrightsville Beach Art Company, and he's waving to a friend as he helps board up his shop in anticipation of Hurricane Florence on Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. And as you know, more than 1 million people were under evacuation orders in the eastern United States Tuesday, where powerful Hurricane Florence threatened catastrophic damage to a region popular with vacationers and home to crucial government institutions. So this is from CBS 2 Chicago. So some quick facts. Florence is a potentially catastrophic Category 4 storm approaching the U.S. East Coast. At 11 a.m. Wednesday, the storm was centered 485 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, moving at 15 miles per hour. The storm's center will approach the coast of North Carolina or South Carolina in the hurricane warning area on Thursday and Friday and move slowly near the coastline through Saturday, according to the National Hurricane Center. So the track has shifted somewhat south and west, throwing Georgia into peril as Florence moves inland. So about 1.7 million people in North and South Carolina and Virginia were under warnings to evacuate the coast as of Tuesday, and hurricane watches and warnings extended across an area with about 5.4 million residents. So communities along the Carolina coast prepared for the onslaught of Hurricane Florence as forecasters Wednesday warned that the monster storm could hesitate just offshore for days, pushing a longer stretch of coastline than previously feared before pushing its way inland. So the National Hurricane Center's projected track had Florence hovering off the southern North Carolina coast from Thursday night until landfall Saturday morning or so, about a day later than previously expected. And the track also shifted somewhat south and west, throwing Georgia into peril as Florence moves inland. So on Wednesday afternoon, Georgia's governor declared a state of emergency. He said, in light of the storm's forecasted southward track after making landfall, I encourage Georgians to be prepared for the inland effects of the storm, as well as the ensuing storm surge in coastal areas. So at 11 a.m., the storm was centered 485 miles southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina, moving at 15 miles per hour. And it is a potentially catastrophic Category 4 storm with 130 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. Now, the National Hurricane Center said life-threatening storm surge and rainfalls is expected across parts of North and South Carolina. And going to pull this over while I finish this off. I want to give you a chance just to keep looking at that live radar. So the Hurricane Center said late Wednesday morning on the forecast track, the center of Florence will move over the southwestern Atlantic Ocean between Bermuda and the Bahamas today and approach the coast of North Carolina or South Carolina in the hurricane warning area on Thursday and Friday and move slowly near the coastline through Saturday, the center said late Wednesday morning. So the overall trend is exceptionally bad news, according to University of Miami hurricane researcher Brian McNulty, who says since it smears a landfall out over hundreds of miles of coastline, most notably the storm surge. Now, some strengthening is forecast through Wednesday night, drawing energy from the warm water, and its winds could also approach Category 5 strength, which means winds of 157 miles per hour or higher. So Jeff Byard, who is administrator with FEMA, warned this is not going to be a glancing blow. This is going to be a Mike Tyson punch to the Carolina coast. Now, with South Carolina's beach towns more in the bullseye, Ohio vacationers Chris and Nicole Rollin were trying to time their evacuation from North Myrtle Beach to get to the mainland. And Nicole Rollin said, "It's been really nice, also a little creepy. You feel like you should have already left." Now, as of Tuesday, about 1.7 million people in North and South Carolina and Virginia were under warnings to evacuate the coast, and hurricane watches and warnings extended across an area with about 5.4 million residents. So some said that they planned to stay put, but they were not taking any chances. So steady streams of vehicles full of people and belongings flowed inland Tuesday as North Carolina Governor Roy Moore tried to convince everyone on North Carolina's coast to flee. And he said the waves and the wind this storm may bring is nothing like you've ever seen. Even if you've ridden out storms before, this one is different. Don't bet your life on riding out a monster. So President Trump is urging those in the path of the storm to act now to get out of its way. And he told the residents, don't play games with it. Now, in a videotaped message from the Rose Garden, he said that the federal government and first responders stand ready to assist, but even so, bad things can happen when you're talking about a storm this size. So President Trump has also declared states of emergency for North and South Carolina and Virginia, opening the way for federal aid. Now, all three states ordered mass evacuations along the coast. Getting out of harm's way, however, has proved difficult since airlines were canceling flights and motorists had a hard time finding fuel. Now, the flight tracking service FlightAware said on Wednesday that it's starting to see airlines file cancellations for airports in Florence's path. Now, as of early afternoon, total cancellations within, into, or out of the U.S. on Wednesday was 207, while 411 flights were canceled for Thursday. And CBS News correspondent David Begnaud reported that people living in the Barrier Island community of Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, were bracing for a possible direct impact. And Philip Payne told Begnaud as he packed up his truck for the drive to Charlotte Tuesday with his fiance and 2 dogs, "We've got a long trip. It's definitely been a learning experience, but we're definitely getting out of here. Better safe than sorry." And long lines formed at service stations, and some started running out of gas as far west as Raleigh with bright yellow bags, signs, or rags placed above the pumps to show that they were out of order. And some store shelves were even picked clean. Now, Kristen Harrington, she was shopping at the Walmart in Wilmington. She said there's no water, there's no juices, there's no canned goods. And people were not the only ones evacuating to get out of the path of Hurricane Florence. 8 dogs and 18 cats from a shelter in Norfolk, Virginia, were sent to 2 shelters in Washington to make room for pets expected to be displaced by the hurricane. So the coastal surge from Florence could actually leave the eastern tip of North Carolina under more than 9 feet, 2.75 meters of water in spots projections showed. So the Navy, Air Force, and Army were moving ships and aircraft out of harm's way. Thousands of Marines and their families evacuated from Camp Lejeune, leaving the rest to dig in ahead of what could be a direct hit. So Florence's projected path includes half a dozen nuclear power plants, pits holding coal, ash, and other industrial waste, and numerous hog farms that store animal waste in huge lagoons. So Duke Energy spokesman Ryan Mossier said operations would begin shutting down nuclear plants at least 2 hours before hurricane force winds arrive. And the National Weather Service said Florence will likely be the storm of a lifetime for portions of the Carolina coast. That's saying a lot given the impacts from hurricanes Diana, Hugo, Fran, Bonnie, Floyd, and Matthew. And Florence is the most dangerous of the 3 tropical systems in the Atlantic. So Tropical System Isaac was expected to pass south of Puerto Rico, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, while Hurricane Helen was moving northward away from land. Forecasters also were tracking 2 other disturbances, so federal officials begged residents to put together emergency kits and have a plan on where to go. And Bynard, the FEMA official, said this storm is going to knock out power days into weeks. It's going to destroy infrastructure. It's going to destroy homes. Now, he said on Wednesday it was imperative that locals heed evacuation warnings and that the time to flee Florence is now. He said, today's the day. It's time for our citizens to be a part of the team. Heed those warnings and evacuate if you're in one of the zones. So moving on just to see what else people have to say on Twitter. Going to refresh this real quick. So there are a few more updates on Twitter, but going to save some of those for more coverage later on. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Thank you for your interaction here on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, wherever you're watching from. Thank you so much. Now stay safe. Hopefully, if you were in those areas, you're already evacuated. And remember, you continue to reach out to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN, and stay tuned for more coverage throughout the day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate each and every single one of you. And once again, for Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Alyssa Ashe.